My name is Olha Haliuka and I am a postgraduate student of Primary and Preschool Education Department of Ivan Franko National University of Lviv, Ukraine. And the topic of my report is Social Mobility of Primary School Teachers, the Challenges of a COVID-19 Pandemic. Quarantine restrictions are a challenge for all participants in educational process, teachers, students, parents. However, such quasi-extreme conditions are the impetus for the creation of qualitatively new, non-standard and innovative forms and methods of interaction between primary school teachers and students. If the teacher quickly adapts to such an environment, is creative in solving educational problems, flexibly adapt to the established anti-epidemic framework, and teach it to his students, then thus forms in himself the ability to social mobility. For such a teacher, any limitations, particularly those related to the pandemic phenomenon, are not limitations at all, but opportunities. At the present stage of studying the social mobility of the individual in pedagogical contexts is reflected in scientific works of many European and American scientists. Over the past year, scientists haven't been actively studying the peculiarities of the educational process in the context of the COVID-19 pandemic. In particular, the topic of readiness of primary school teachers to function in distance and planned learning format was not overlooked. To organize quality education using digital technology to inspire and motivate students to cope technical problems is not easy. It is therefore particularly relevant and important is the formation of primary school teachers in the capacity for social mobility. The purpose of the study is to highlight the essence, role, and significance of the phenomenon of social mobility in a pandemic, to determine the practical aspects of the formation of social mobility in primary school teachers. The research methodology you can see on the slide. And now we are ready to share the results of our research. The first one is about the definition of social mobility. The founder of theory of social mobility is considered to be the American sociologist and culturologist Peter Sorokin. By social mobility, a scientist means any transition of an individual or social object from one social position in the social space to another. Thus, the researcher interprets the concept as the movement of the individual on the social ladder. Thus, mobility acts both as a process and as a personal characteristic, which is prerequisite for social adaptation, social transformation, and personal development of the study of the subjects of activity. In our opinion, social mobility is the integrative ability of an individual to adapt to the changing environment and change dictated by society. Social mobile education specialist is competitive and in demand in the labor market because speed and efficiency, flexibility and adaptability, innovation and mobility is the main characteristics of the teacher of the new conditions of modern educational space. On the slide, you can see the main characteristics of social mobility primary school teachers by Kilichenko. It is openness of the person in relation to new, breadth and versatility of thinking, flexibility of teacher's personality, guidelines, and critical personality. The second one of the results of the research is a distance learning in pandemic as a way of formation social mobile teachers. Let's analyze the process of formation of social mobility primary school teachers from the point of view of statistics and analytics. As mentioned above, a social mobile educator must respond comfortably and quickly to the problems, obstacles, and changes of public life. In a pandemic, it is very important for teachers to develop mobility skills, to make flexible social transitions from full-time to distance learning, to master new technique and methods, to be ready for self-development and self-improvements, following the principles of pedagogy. To support communication with pupils, primary school teacher in Ukraine used a variety of online platform and video conferencing service, social networks and messengers, including Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, Viber, Telegram, and so on. According to the survey of the State Quality Service of Education in Ukraine, on the distance learning organization in general, secondary education institution in quarantine, you can see the most popular tools and platform for distance learning in percent. Scientists of the Institute of Informational Technologies and teaching aides of the National Academy of Pedagogical Science of Ukraine during March 27-April 4, 2020, at the beginning of the pandemic, conducted an online survey on the needs of teachers, including primary education and other categories of educators in distance learning and professional development during quarantine associated with the spread of the Covid-19 virus in Ukraine. The result of the survey showed that more than 95% of respondents carry out educational activities in quarantine, which tell us about the responsible attitude of teachers to their work. On the slide, you can see the main problems and obstacles for primary school teachers during a pandemic in Ukraine. A positive trend is observed in the fact that 61% of teachers are actively engaged in self-education to provide and organize distance learning. At the same time, the main demand is for authors' lessons on the YouTube channel, 72.9%, materials for educators on Editura, 42.3%, and Prometheus, 32.5%. The most effective forms of professional development of Ukrainian primary school teachers in quarantine as webinars, online courses, master classes, online conferences, online seminars, and projects. Also, you can see the practical recommendation for the successful removal of obstacles to the formation of socially mobile primary education professionals. The formed ability to social mobility of primary school teachers in the modern realities of the pandemic is a necessary link, a kind of elevator that unites or allows for a smooth transition from one full-time quarantine to another distance educational environment. Thank you for your attention.